Hey, what's up everyone? Max here today with you. Thanks for coming in. And as you can see here, this is a mahogany plank which I just bought from the store. And this is gonna be a base for our epoxy table. For your notice, mahogany wood is one of the cheapest ones comparing to oak and other ones. So I just chose this one because I love the look of it and because this is my first one, so I didn't want to go for too expensive materials. So first thing first, I'm cutting out this base for a form where I will have my plank for epoxy pouring. So as you can see, it takes a little bit to go through and prepare all the details. So this is the sides which I cut from the 16 millimeter material, and it can be bought, from the shop as well. I had some spare. When using a chop saw, it helps to have a 90 degrees corners cuts for exact measurements. Now I prepare to screw it in and making measurements using my drill to prepare holes for it as well. So I just wanted to make sure I won't have any spillage. I've seen a lot of people having this problem, so that's why I'm using this silicone under every single board I screw in. So this takes a while. It's tedious, I might have to say, but that's okay. I think it's worth it because I did not have any leaks on this project at all. So I highly recommend not to skip in this step for you guys out there. On this project, I chose 100 mil high board for this form, but I noticed that it was a little bit too high. Next time I would have something like 50 mil because this allows me to use clamps more efficient when I want to keep in place plank itself or wood material, as you can see here. I chose a small form, 150 centimeters, for this small little computer table. As you can see here, I have material for the future legs, and the one I'm working at is basically a side of it. So I decided to use it and remove of whatever is cork on this side. Now it takes a little bit of time, but I didn't want to chance it, so I removed it completely, and I did not regret it. So I will need to make a form for it so that I want to use it for pouring epoxy as well, the same type of it. So it takes a bit of the time, but it's okay. After final preparation and sanding, it's ready for going further. So the next step is to make a form for the leg itself, as it again needs to be poured in. I used the same material. It took a while, but it's okay. I used as well a height for the form 100 mil, and as you could see, it's worked just fine. Again, after I'm using a chop saw so that all parts would be perfectly square and I won't have any gaps. It takes a while for all this preparation for every form, for every detail. But that's the part of the fun. And again, as you can see, I'm using silicone so that there won't be any gaps at all. When working with this sort of forms for the pouring, I highly recommend using a countersink. This allows to screws going directly into the boards and not going any on the side through the form. There is no damage and there is no hassle. So once this is done, as you can see, it's time to come back to the board itself, to the plank of mahogany, and I decided to shave it a little bit using mini grinder because I thought it's a little bit too boring having straight lines everywhere. So as you can see here, it works just fine. Before pouring, this surface of this form needs to be greased. I'm using a simple oil. It's like machine oil, which you can get in your van, in your car. And after that's done, I put my leg in and make a preparation for pouring. I'm using basically the same epoxy, which I'm gonna use in just a minute, but I'm working through the side of this legs and leg and the table. As you can see here, it's just first layer is done because the epoxy I used this time is not supposed to be going on the thick layer. It's only up to 20 mil, which I'm using here. Between the layers, I need to sand it, and I'm cleaning it with the white spirit. This way, it's gonna stick to each other, and I won't have any problems. And now I can say it works just fine. As you can see on the sides of this board, I have some silicone as the stopper, so that when it's flat in with the surface of the board, it's not gonna leak. Once this all solid, it takes a while to remove it. On this particular one, I obviously didn't have enough oil, and it took a long time to clear the leg from the whatever is left from the board. So the same story here, but once all the screws are taken out, it's worked a little bit better, as I did not spot any surface from when I was using oil. As you can see, this looks already great. I enjoy it very much. It's as hard as the glass, and my colleague is we're gonna run it through the Rasmus and shave it a little bit so that I won't need to use other ways of flattening it. This sort of machinery allows to make a perfect square, and I do use it this time, but it can be also done with your hand tools as well. So next step, to give it a polish. I'm not showing it here, but I'm using a sandpaper starting from 80, then 120, and then when that's done, to 440. Sorry, 240. Using router with the smallest radius bit I have allows to have a smooth and nice finish on the edges. It would be done on both sides, and today when it's all done, I can have to say it went brilliantly. So I continue to polish it from both sides and have it done. Now the same thing with the leg. You can already tell it looks great, and I was really enjoying working with it. The same stuff happening with all the legs I have. Then it needs to be as well prepared and polished for the lacquer. Now varnishing, of course, it's a later stage. We'll get there when it's done, but routing takes a while. So when that done, I can safely start working with actual legs, building legs. And I went with uh, simple form, which for this particular project was just enough. Having a nice chop saw allows to easily accomplish this task. This particular Makita miter saw is just great. I was enjoying it, working on the batteries, but it's perfect for the job. So when I was cutting this particular leg, I was trying to leave as much epoxy as possible. Anyway, so I'm using this belts for having it sticking it together, because this particular glue works better when it's under the pressure. It's commonly used for working with all sort of windows, doors, and that kind of stuff. It's basically carpentry glue, and it was basically strong enough to have it there as it is. But later on, I will reinforce it with a bits of wood going inside of it. While this was finishing up, when it was drying, I started working on the drawer, because any computer table is supposed to have a drawer. So again, using the same material which was bought from the local store, I'm preparing all what's needed for it accomplishment. Unfortunately, my camera work is not that great, but I promise I'm gonna try to make it look better for the next projects, which are definitely coming in. And the next project is gonna be a round table made of basically a coffee table made of oak and a black epoxy. Looking forward for that project. So if you was watching that far, please subscribe, leave your feedback. I would be glad to read it. So most important part here now is to find a spot for it, because I have also a front for the drawer, and now after mechanism is installed, everything needs to be perfect. So it should be flush with the edge of the front of the table. It takes a while to find its place and assemble it together. And as you can see here, I'm using this wooden angle corner, which I'm drilling right now. I chose to use it because it allows me to glue it in, first of all, and secondly, it's big enough to keep it perpendicular to the surface of the table, and it's quite strong, I have to say. So I could have used, usual metal corners, but I decided to use this one, and it's not going to be seen. It's not a problem. So a little bit of note to, if you're going to be working with this sort of mechanism, be very careful with it, because it's, first of all, it should be parallel. All the measurements should be like mirrored. Otherwise, it's not going to be working the way it should be. But that, right now I'm working on the front, and I decided to, have this kind of form for it, because I was trying to make it look not as boring or standard as possible. If you look closely, but now you can't, of course, I chose the part of the board where there's a lot of grind, and after it will be varnished, I'm sure it's going to be looking great, and it will. It's actually perfect for the job. When you're working with mahogany or any other hardwood, sanding is the biggest and most important part. So it takes a while to work through every surface, make sure you're not skipping the sanding from, like, let's say 80 to 240. When I was working on it, I noticed it works just great when you're not skipping it. So as you can see here now, I'm preparing for reinforcing this legs with a bit of sticks and the like chops and the glue. It takes a while, but also not a big problem, and it can be done, in your workshop easily. Now, next part is when I was assembling the drawer, I forgot to, well, it's not actually forgot, I was not sure how to um, connect my front of the drawer. So I decided to add this part to the drawer so that I can just screw it with the screws. Otherwise, I needed to use either angle brackets or something else to connect it to the drawer. But this way it works just great. Here I'm just zooming in for you so that you can see in detail which way I was going to connect those legs with the table itself. I made a small bit of a mistake here. First I thought I will go through the epoxy and have it there, but then I decided no, I'm not gonna get any chances. I didn't want it to crack or anything like that, so I left it as you can see there in a wood. After a small bit of polishing, so that it's not playing around, it's not bending any other side. I left it as it is. The same happening here as well. I'm using these screws, which you can get also in your local store, and it's worked just great. As you can see, you screw in one part and then a bolt to it, and it's solid and looking great. For the view, I just made a small bit of wash, and it's already given its colors and its grain. So this part is most enjoyable, I would imagine. I'm giving it a varnish coat, and I'm using a roller only for the purpose of adding one or two coats, because it will be needed to sand for this deep view anyway. In this particular project, I didn't use clear gloss one. I used a half matte one. So I noticed it after it's completed. It's perfectly flush. It's nice to touch. It's perfect, but it wouldn't give this gloss effect. But in any case, for the next project, I'm gonna use oil for the wood and epoxy. As it turned out, varnish is a little bit too gentle to use when it's all done. It does not like any heat or anything like that, and especially for the dining table, varnish wouldn't work, on my opinion, because it's always something hot, plate or a tea cup. So as you can see there, I'm repeating the steps and again, and while I was doing it, I was thinking how to finish it off, and I made this part out of the whatever is material left, so that they will go around the table and give it a complete look. So after two coats, I'm giving it a good sanding, not with the 240 sanding paper, and it's worked great. After you go through every little bump or imperfection, it feels already smooth. And when it's smooth as it is, it's time for spraying. which will be done in just a second. Spraying varnish is probably the most exciting part and most rewarding part of this process, and it's done. When it's done, you can really see how it's gonna look at the end. Every detail needs to be sprayed for this smooth and perfect finish. It takes a while to dry every single coat, but it's after several coats which applied one after another with the small bit of sanding, it looks great. Now you can see that I have assembled these two corners under the table counter and screwing it there in position. For this particular part, you have to be very careful and have it exactly in position where it's supposed to be. It should be flush with all the edges so that when it's done, it will be looking as it should be. Now you can have a look at the final product, the way all the grind is seen, and then the way epoxy just shines under the sunbeam. I personally enjoyed it. I loved it very much. Even though there are some imperfections, there are something to work on, and especially on the next projects, I'm probably gonna use, as I mentioned before, different coating, but I still enjoyed it very much. Hope you enjoyed it as I did. Please, as I said before, subscribe. It means a lot for me, and leave your feedback, commentary. I will answer all of them, and I would really appreciate if you have any sort of suggestions, whatever mistakes you found, or something to look at. In any case, guys, it was a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And there you go, a first epoxy table made of mahogany and pearl blue pigment. See you guys.